everyone, welcome to the second episode of the J&J Power Hour. We're going to do something different this week, but listen, we're on the fly. We're going to do child stars, talk a little bit about the Britney stuff this week, but we haven't even, there's a whole new documentary on Netflix that's literally just came out as we're recording. It kind of dropped overnight for me. It would have dropped today at some point for you. So we're going to wait till next week to do that. So when in doubt, what do we talk about? We talk about wrestling. Wrestling's easy to talk about. I mean, we were just talking for 15 minutes about all different kinds of wrestling. So it's not hard for us to talk about wrestling. We literally have to do no research. If we know anything, we got wrestling up here. But before we get into today's topic, how's things with you? You were at a wedding this past weekend. You were doing things,
I
JPJ.
was. Yeah, no, it was a busy week and weekend, as you can tell by my voice. It's a tad off.
A little coarse.
But yeah, no, my little sister got married over the weekend, so it was fun. Everything was beautiful, and she looked beautiful, and she was happy. Everything went well. It was a really good time. But yeah, today was the first day back at the shoot job after the long weekend off, so that's always kind of like. But yeah, no, that's good. I'm good. It was just a busy week last week, so.
Weddings,
other than that,
weddings are fun, but they're like very tiring. They're so tiring.
Yes.
Well, I guess dependent
And
on
like,
who's in the wedding and who's there, but like they're
Exactly.
so I've got a wedding to go to in November for my little sister, and it's just like, you book that block of time away because you're oh god,
oh yeah,
because
And
it's
like,
drinking.
like I'm
it's
assuming,
it's just the rocks.
yeah, and like I was involved in the wedding, obviously, with it being my sister. So there's the rehearsal. The day before is like longer than the actual wedding day because you're rehearsing, you're going over things. There's speed, it's this big hullabaloo. It's a lot easier if you're just like a guest, like a friend guest, where you're like, I'm just going to show up and party and have a good time. And yeah, but when you're involved, it's like, oh, there's a little bit more to it. But luckily, the wedding itself was a blast, seeing a lot of family and friends that some of which I haven't seen in years because of COVID, like literally years. So no, it was really good. But like you said, it's long. It's a long weekend. Good and bad. Good and bad for sure.
Definitely. Here's another thing something that's really rattled my feathers. So, I if anyone that follows me on Twitter and you, JPJ, because we've talked about it before, it seemed like I was in this grand idea that international travel was announced that by December, Australia have kind of said, you can get on a plane, you can go somewhere, you've got to come back and home quarantine for 14 days or whatever, but you can get up and go somewhere. Well, boy, was I wrong. Have they backtracked on that statement? Because they've decided they've only going to trial it in some states. And get this, this is how backwards Australia is at the moment. The two states that do it are the two states that are currently infected with COVID and in lockdown. They're the states that's going to trial this. So the ones like South Australia that have had no community COVID in a while, that we're blocked off from the rest of the country, but we're just living our lives, not having any COVID. We're not included in this trial.
That
makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like, okay, you're gonna have the two most infected states or areas be first. Well, if things aren't, I mean, I would assume
because they're the two. New South Wales and Victoria are the two like key states to Australia, so you're gonna low key punish the rest of the country for doing well.
There's that part of it too, and then when I think, because like obviously I'm in America, so when I think about it, it's like if you're gonna start traveling out of the country, like other countries coming here or coming potentially anywhere, like I don't want the people coming from the most infected parts. Like I want, like that, all that's going to do is potentially make this keep going.
I have no idea what their mindset is on this, but because it come up now, like, listen, we want you to be able to start living your lives again. Like by December, we're going to have our vaccination rates are doing really well. We're nearly at, I believe this state is at 70% first dose. We're at like 40% second dose. So we're getting there. Most of the country is like 70, 80%. Once we're at 80 countrywide, that's when the Prime Minister is stepping in going, borders are opening. We need to start, like, COVID is going to happen. It's just going to happen. Yeah. We understand that. But if you're double vaxxed, double dose vaxxed, you're good. Like, at least then we're protected and we can start seeing what life is like. And it was like international travel and that will be good. but they're trialing because they're doing home quarantine instead of hotel quarantine. They're trialing different things, but New South Wales and Victoria are the only two states that's going to be included in this trial for now. I mean, the Australian government is pretty. They change flip-flop a lot. So, like, I can imagine it'll change 6 times between now and the next time me and you talk in a week. But, oh my goodness. I'm just like, I read that and I was like, are you kidding? I just want to, I was planning to travel to the States in 2020. So I planned a trip in 2019. I was going to be coming to the States in the November of 2020. And then, I mean, the pandemic happened and obviously I couldn't leave. And I'm trying to get in the mindset of planning for next year. I want to come up around October, like basically this time next year. And I don't know when I can start, because once you start putting money down, it's hard to get that back.
Correct.
So, like, I don't want to go putting all this, because it's expensive. Like, it's expensive to get from here to the States and then stay in the States and then have money. It's a lot of money. So I need to start planning this thing so I can start, going with a travel agent or like a payoff system so I can start putting money on it every week. But once you get to a certain percentage that you will never get back. So, it's annoying, but I just want to know. I just want COVID. COVID's not going to go away, but I just want it to go away.
No. Yeah. And I agree. Like, I felt like last year, 2020 happened and we were all in it together, well, and the thought process was, we got to get to 2021. Just get to 2021. It'll be better. And I'm sitting here in October of 2021 is days away. And I'm sitting here going, yeah, 2021 was worse.
Yeah, like, for us,
to me, at least, it seems like it was way worse.
Oh,
like,
our pandemic this year has been way worse than last year. We were in and out of it. We were like done. And this year it's just crap.
Yeah, like the actual pandemic of it, at least here in the States, like where I live in Massachusetts, at the end of May, the governor was basically like, we're going back to normal at the end of May. We're not waiting anymore. Yeah. So it is what it is. Businesses, if you want people to wear a mask, you put it on the door, whatever, you make your own rules, but like no more rules.
Yeah.
So from like the end of May until now, it's basically like nothing ever happened. You see people still wearing masks. I have to wear a mask at work still. Like that part of it's still there, but like customers come into my work all day, every day, walking around just like normal. But like just 2021 in general, first of all, it's already October and it feels like the year didn't even happen. First of all. So the first half of the year, you're still kind of in that limbo of like, we can't really do anything, blah, 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 blah. And even now that we can do things, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Like I went to SummerSlam in Vegas, had one of the best weekends of my life. It was awesome. But I'm sitting in a stadium with 70,000 people. And I'm like, I have a mask on because you had to wear one. But in my brain, I'm like, I'm glad I'm here, but this can't be the right decision. Like this can't be.
I couldn't imagine.
We shouldn't all be here. This is too many people.
Couldn't imagine.
You know what I mean?
Sitting in a stadium full of 70,000 people. That's so
like
far out for us at the moment because of our situation. It just seems like even if they were to say tomorrow, like, listen, we're done with this. We need to go back to some kind of normal, and they started having 70,000 seat stadium sports shows. I'm not going to that. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm just,
and I think
I'm pretty anxious about that kind of stuff, though. Like, I'm pretty like,
I was anxious leading into that. Yeah, I was super anxious leading into that weekend. I was like, hey, I'm really excited. Like, this is going to be great. It's going to be good. And it was. But leading into it, I was like, man, like, going to be around a lot of people. Like, a lot of people. And I was just like, okay.
Well, at least you didn't get COVID. That's
correct. I was good, but I was vaxxed and good, ready to go. Yeah. Like, I was like, all right. I felt safe. Like, I felt like, okay, you're vaccinated. Like, you should be okay. But it was still like just seeing that many people for the first time in almost 2 years. It was like, whoa, like this is like, you don't think about it when you were doing it so often before or going to cons, whatever you're doing. But then
even though someone could be
that
sick,
basically changes the world. Yeah.
Someone
could be there with the flu. We didn't care. We were like, whatever. I'm going to see my favorite band or whatever.
It's so
and
weird.
Now after this world changing thing that was 2020, it's just like, whoa, and like I watch football every weekend and all the stadiums are packed and nobody's, besides a few stadiums, nobody's wearing masks. They're all clinging drinks and hugging and high-fiving. And I'm like, all right, Yeah, like, cool. Like, it is what it is. Like, I don't want people to not be able to enjoy life ever again. But
Yeah,
at the same time, it's like,
I'm the same.
that's kind of where I lie.
That's where I am as well, because it's like there's this weird balance of like I want life to be normal, but also I don't want to get fucking COVID. So like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I'm happy to continue to wear a mask for a little while, at least till vaccination rates. I know it's different for we're in a very different spot with vaccinations, but
Mhm.
um, like at least have vaccination rates up to a certain percentage to say, hey, okay, at least this part of the we're having it's a very interesting time in this country for anyone that doesn't know. A lot of things are now going to be like, for example, in New South Wales, the state of New South Wales, it's going to be if you're vaccinated, you have freedom. If you're not, you have to stay inside
Yes.
your home.
I
Basically,
mean, that's how it's getting here, and people are already.
oh, people, you can imagine. That's why we've had protests in Melbourne. That's why we've had
Yeah.
protests in Sydney.
Yeah.
People are protesting here. I'm like, bitch, we're not even in lockdown. Why are you People are just being mad to be mad. Like,
To be mad. Yeah. And
they just think it affects them. And I'm like, we have literally, they want borders to open up to
yeah.
all these states. And I'm like, I understand you probably have friends and family. It's getting close to Christmas time. However, the reason you have these freedoms in this state at the moment, other than having to wear a mask, really, um, is because we aren't opened up to the rest of the country. We aren't, well,
Yep.
not the rest. I just say the two states that are ramaged with COVID. We're opened up to the rest of the
Yeah.
country. So I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, and people are just being mad to be mad. But, whatever. We're just doing our own thing. I'm just we can now we've got 3 different kinds of vaccines approved in this country now, and we can just go to
Nice.
our local pharmacy now and go get the vaccine because
Yeah. That's
they just want to pump them out. So I'm going to get literally
of
my
course
first dose tomorrow. I'm excited. I'm
nice. Good for
finally going to
you.
be
Yeah.
half vaxxed, and then by the end of October, I'll be fully vaxxed. I just can't wait to
Nice.
just parade that
Yep.
around and be like, I'm fully vaxxed, bitch. I've been waiting for so long. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
I've
Of
been waiting
course.
for I've literally had an appointment booked for months, and that finally got announced. I'm like, I'm canceling that. I rang up the chemist to be like, hey, can I come down here and do this? They're like, yep, walk in. There's no appointments to be made. We have so many doses
Oh.
in 7 days that we have to administer. So you can just walk in and you can go get your shot. And I'm like, thank God. I just want to get my
Yeah.
first
That's
dose
amazing.
and get the hell out of it. It's that never say the word properly. It's the Moderna,
Moderna.
yeah, that one. That
Moderna. Yeah. That's the
Moderna.
one that I got.
Yeah.
I had that one.
So
So.
does it fuck you up on the first dose, or is it the second dose that does
Well,
it?
here's the thing. So the percentage, at least for us, was you get fucked up on the second one. There's a
Okay.
chance
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get
yeah,
fucked up on the
yeah.
second one, but for me, the first one was worse. Now, when I say worse for me, I was relatively. I had no. I had a bad headache for the day.
Okay,
Like it
that's
wasn't like I wasn't like Matt, the franchise who I do some stuff with on Love Wrestling. When he got his first one, he was messaging me and he was like, "Bro, I think I'm dying."
mm.
And it was the first. I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." Like
Did
I've
he?
had the
I think
chills. I'm like on my couch.
he had
I think he
fi-
did the
yeah, he had
Pfizer,
Pfizer. I'm
maybe.
pretty sure because
Yes.
that was the one.
So
Basically, we had 2. We had that and AstraZeneca, and um, people my age, his age, like that age group, were getting Pfizer. But now that we got this other one, they're saying that's the good, well-rounded one forever. You know how they have, and
yeah,
they say to just get any vaccine that you can.
yeah. They say get whatever you can,
But
but yeah,
because people are like, you'll get a blood clot and you'll get all this, I'm like, the chances that
just
that will
stop.
actually
Yeah.
happen to
Yes.
you, you
Yes.
have more chance of being struck by
I
lightning.
I could need surgery on my arm, and there's a 0.2% chance I could die on the table.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? I
Dude,
still need
there's a
surgery on my
point
arm.
there's a point
Like
0.0001 chance that my ceiling will cave in right now and
yes,
I'll die.
yeah. What are we not going to podcast because you're scared? Again, I'm not. It's a choice. I'm not saying scared in a negative way, but like you know what I mean.
It is a
Like
choice, but also
anything
like if
can.
I can encourage anybody to do anything, it's get vaccinated. I'm not. I
Yes,
some people don't
100%.
like that, and that's fine. It's a follow. I'm happy to lose if people. I'm not going to shove it down your throat, but also I'm just saying from my experience and what I believe in. I believe in vaccination, so I believe that's what's right in my head. Do what you want, but that's my. And some people can't stand that because I've had people literally berate me on Twitter for saying pro-vaccination, and they're like, "I'm going to block you." I'm like, Good for you.
Go ahead. Yeah, like do you, man? Looks cool, man. I'm still gonna be over here getting vaccinated. So you do
You
you.
have fun
Like,
when you can't go to the pub, and I'll have fun when I can go to the pub. So just put it that way.
yes,
So,
yes,
but
correct.
it is what it is. We won't sit here and talk about vaccinations for an hour because we are going to talk about wrestling. And I messaged you yesterday, and I was just like, it'd be a fun episode to do. It all spawned from the not in a debate style, but it all spawned of like me and Spencer really because we go on about Sean and Brett all the time. And we have this kind of like where we lie kind of situation. And I thought, hey, let's tone it down a little. We don't have to fight each other like me and Spencer do because Spencer's a little turd. But we can go on about this one for a little while because it's easy to talk about. There's always this kind of like Rock Austin, Sean Brett. There's always this kind of like talk about two different, people and which team do you lie on. And I don't really see many people doing episodes like this. So I feel like we should shine a light on it and do it. Are you Team
Yep.
Trish Stratus or you're a Team Lita? It's always one or the other. It's always kind of like people like sitting and being like, I'm Lita, I'm Trish, blah, blah, blah. And you can kind of have your points for either. I'll start off with just saying that I love both Trish and Lita, and they're the two pillars
Same.
of that generation of female talent. Two pillars of that generation of wrestling, period, really.
Easily.
They
Yeah.
are they're the two pillars. But you always have one, no matter what you say, no matter how much you love both of them and what they kind of, brought to the table. There always is one you kind of lean more towards being like, but she's better. She's better.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to pre-screen the fact that we didn't want to just be the same person here and just be like, well, we're both team this person because it would last about 5 minutes and would have nothing to talk about. I did ask, and it was a complete whim on my point. I was just like, I'm just going to ask, and it works out well. But before we get into our choices of who we are, when you think about that period of time in wrestling, so 02 or like 2000 to like 2006, besides Trish and Lita, or even Trish and Lita included, what is your fondest memories of that time of wrestling for you personally?
Oh, man. I was a real big fan of the rated R superstar Edge.
Yeah.
This is why. Now, again, I like you. I like Lita and Trish both.
Mm-hmm.
So I do lean the Lita way, but I don't want this to make it sound like I only like Lita more because I really liked Edge. But like I felt like that couple, that was like when Lita turned into that heel and she was with Edge and they were doing their nasty, what they were doing. That was like, to me, that brought everything to a next level for me. And I was just like, okay, like for how they got there and what happened in real life stuff and behind, whatever.
It blurred the line, didn't
they
it?
were
Of
perfect.
reality and fiction.
Oh yeah. 100%. And they were kind of like they were the perfect heel couple to me. Like you
They
get
were
Triple H
the
and
top
Stephanie.
heels at that time. They
Oh
were untouchable.
yeah. They were, and they just fit each other perfectly. You could tell by their on-screen chemistry that they like really were into each other, like behind, like they were, they were in a relationship. It was real. The chemistry they had, like you could tell, like they were like, yeah, they took it to the extremes that they took it to. They basically had sex on Raw.
Well, basically.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, not,
Not in
the more wrestling side of it, but like that.
It
that,
added
like,
to it though.
Yes.
I think that still is now but like so long. It was like the highest rated Raw segment ever, or something like that. At least in that time period.
It would be
Well, I mean,
for the time period,
sex sells and whatever it is. I mean,
yeah,
they had sex without having sex, I guess you could say. But like they were not in clothes under there. I remember Lita saying like Vince said that you must be naked.
Unbelievable.
That's a whole
when you
nother.
think about that.
I mean,
like think about that. Think about that line you just said right there. Vince told me you have to be naked.
That's Vince in a nutshell.
Yeah, I know.
If you have to, like, Lita said that she was not comfortable with that segment. She said it so many times, but they threatened her. They were like, if you don't do this segment, you're not here. Like, she basically said that they would fire her. She said that on her many interviews, which is pretty fucked.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Because I guess it's more. I guess it would be more demeaning for her than Edge. Because, I mean,
100%.
because women are looked at as
Yeah.
hoes when they do that, but men are cool. So,
Especially and like in that era too, like early to mid 2000s, like like they were treated on screen
well,
like
Lita's
that.
whole,
Like
like, her gimmick in that time when she was with Edge was, I hate using this word, so block your ears if you don't like it, but slut. That's what they were calling her. That's what
yeah,
the crowd would
yeah,
literally
it
chanting
was
at her.
unbelievable.
I was watching. This is just spiraling, but that's fine. I told you I've been watching 2005 Raws. People on Twitter know that I'm watching 2005 Raws. The literal women's championship storyline going into Mania 21 was Trish Stratus and Christy Hemme, and Christy Hemme posed for Playboy, so Trish Stratus called her a slut. She spray planted the word on her. It's like, we've come a long way from that, obviously,
Oh
but I'm
yeah,
like, that was your one and only female story going into the biggest show that you have.
yeah, and
That's
it was just because someone
insane.
called someone a slut. It's
That makes you a
unbelievable.
heel in 2005 when you're a woman. And some of the, you could just imagine the lead up to that match of
Oh yeah,
Playboy. And by the way, posing for Playboy does not make you a slut for
no,
one.
no, no,
What the
not at
fuck?
all.
And like, what is even that? I've never understood that kind of mentality. But
Yeah,
yeah, Lita and Edge. I mean, that feud with that the initial turn with Kane, and then
oh,
going into obviously the real life stuff with Matt Hardy. I mean,
with Matt Hardy.
there
Yeah,
was no hotter angle than Matt and Edge in
nope,
2005. Like, there was
no,
nothing touching it. They could have been main eventing everything, and no one would have cared in that time, because it would just been like, that's the main event. But it's weird you say about Edge. Edge would not got into that, got him to the next level. It really didn't get Matt
oh yeah,
that far when, in the grand scheme of things. It maybe put him up to like a here, but it put
yeah,
Edge from here to like, it got Edge into the Cena program in 2006 essentially. So, and
hmm
without
I mean,
Lita,
well, I was gonna say Edge needed Lita. You can make
probably,
the argument just as
well,
much, maybe even a little bit more than Lita needed Edge.
I don't
Lita
think
was already made.
Lita was a
You know what I
talent.
mean? Like
Lita was in the latter part of
exactly.
her
Like
career. Like, she was
yeah.
dialing
Like
out. Like, it was her last
so,
little
I would
peak.
now that we're thinking about it, I would make the argument that Edge needed Lita.
But
Like
Lita
Lita
didn't
was
really.
essential. Lita was essential
Lita
to
Lita had a
Edge.
spot.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I would say now that we're kind of talking it through, like, and I haven't gone back and watched that stuff in a while. Like you're kind of in the middle,
I'm about
right
to get
before it a
into
little
the
bit. I
I'm
think
about
like
to
yeah,
get
right
into it.
before you get into it.
It's exciting, actually.
It is, yeah. Like it's something to look forward to because I remember, and again, this is 16, 17 years ago now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember just being enthralled by like when she turned on Kane, I was like, oh shit, like oh
Because you
man,
knew the real
and
life,
then
the fan in us. Even I was a little younger,
yes,
but you're older than me, so you would have been in the
at
prime,
that
like
time I'm
forums,
yeah, at
like,
that time I'm
oh
like
my
right about
god,
to be 20,
like
like
Matt
yeah, I was just
Hardy,
like
Lita
oh
cheated on Matt with Edge, and now they're, oh my god, is
yeah,
this really
oh
going to
yeah,
happen on screen? Like, and was it
yeah,
real? Was it fake? I remember being in that mindset because my brother's so much older, telling me it's real. I'm like, but is it real? Like, is it really? Is that really?
yeah,
Obviously, later we found out it's very much real. But like, I wasn't on
yeah.
the internet what in 2005. I mean, it wasn't what it is now. If it
It
was
wasn't what
happening
it is
now,
now.
everyone
No,
would know, and they probably
yes,
wouldn't put it into a story on television to be well, actually,
maybe
they'd
it
probably.
depends. That I mean that, and again, this is about Trish and Lita, but like that
Oh
speaks to
yeah.
the professionalism of everybody involved there.
I mean, I
That they
couldn't
were
imagine
able
it'd be
to
easy. Oh, for any of
no,
them.
no. And like on in interviews and stuff, both Matt Hardy and Edge have said, "Oh, the first couple punches back, like I knew he
And
was gonna lay it in,
And
and
Edge
I let
said,
him. Like
like,
I
and
knew I
yeah,
deserved it.
Edge was
I
like,
knew I
he
deserved it."
deserves to get a few shots in on me
Yes.
because
Yeah.
he realized he
Yeah.
screwed up. But I think Matt also realized he didn't probably handle the situation put it in Matt's head. Like, I'm not condoning cheating at all because you should never cheat. But Matt had been released from WWE in the end of 2004. Then Lita gets injured at the start of 2005, which is probably when that was all kind of
That
really
started a little bit. Yeah.
happening. So Matt loses his job, his girlfriend, and then he just goes public with everything. You can say what you want about how he handled that, but at the same time,
Hmm.
it's not like he was doing anything wrong in that situation. He was just
Correct.
he just made it public, and then it's kind of hard to get that. I mean, you're a TV figure, so Lita would have been the first. And of course, Lita's going to get hit with this the hardest because she's the woman involved.
That exactly. She's the woman involved, so she's the evil one. She's
Edge is the cool one, but Edge is just like, you're a piece of shit, but like, yeah, fuck yeah, Edge.
Yeah,
you know
and
what I mean?
I think we talked about this. Yeah, we talked about this on air. That's very much still a thing. It's like, oh, so this girl is who's, again, this is different because Lita was cheating at the time. But like in general, in society, if a girl does well, we'll just say does well, she's considered a slut or a whore or whatever, right? But if a dude does well, it's
like, fuck yeah,
a playboy, man, or a pimp, or a, it's like, oh yeah, that guy's a player. That guy's a player or whatever. But if a girl does the same thing, it's like, wow, she sleeps around. It's like, no. So that's still a thing, And so you knew Lita was going to be the one that was getting torched when all that came out. Like, nobody was going to give Edge shit. Edge was going to look like the cool guy that stole this guy's boyfriend.
And who got the most over out of that? Edge. Like, when you even think about it in a wrestling 100%. Society, Edge was the one who benefited that. He was the world champion at the start of the next year because of that. But, you know, I mean, we could probably talk about that this entire episode because it's a whole other situation. But for me, I'm Team Trish. Now, the only reason I'll say, I'm sure you have more to say about Lita's stuff before that, but even in that time period alone, my favorite version of Trish Stratus is heel Trish Stratus. I think people look at Trish and they automatically think babyface, but I don't. I think that year and a half where she like turned on Jericho and was with Christian for a little while. That was really, other than like her initial run with TNA, that was the only time she was a heel. Because like, at least, and she was at the peak of her in-ring kind of stuff. She was able to work with at that time when she was turning heel, we're kind of transitioning out of the wrestlers in the women's division and more into like the Divas era, really, with like Christy Hemme and Stacy Keibler and, that era of women's wrestling. So you still had to have your person that was in the ring that could have a wrestling match, because I'm not disrespecting Christy Hemme in any way, but she's not a wrestler. Christy Hemme was doing other things, and even when she went to TNA, she wrestled for a hot minute, and then she was the ring announcer. Like, she wasn't a wrestler. So Trish really had to be the foil for a lot of these women because she was the women's champ. She was the heel, women's champion at the time, so she needed baby. And hey, say what you will about these, but all those baby faces that Trish was working with were over. Yes, it was based on looks, but that's what it was. I'm not discrediting it because people are like, but it was based on looks. But I'm like, but that's what their role was. They were told to look good and just be passable in the ring enough, and we'll put you with someone who can. Because you still had your workhorses in that time, like Victoria, Molly, Lita, Trish, Ivory. They were the kind of ones that were kind of centered around. And to be honest, a lot of these women were usually the ones taking the L. And a lot of these other women, like your Christie's and Stacey's and Candice Michelle's, they were the ones getting the W's. They were the ones winning. But Trish in that time was just her character work in that time. Like, I'm always going to be more favorable towards heels. It's just how I am. I like heels better than I like baby faces for the most part.
Same.
But Trish, I think Trish was at a point where she was becoming stale as a babyface in 2004. And you had Lita, who was, I think, arguably more over as a babyface than Trish was, I think. But I think that Trish is a better heel than Lita, which is going to rub some people the wrong way because I know how good Lita was in that time with Edge. But I just think Lita was a natural babyface for the whole time. I mean, she come from Team Extreme, which is, I mean, you're not going to boo them. They were the coolest shit in the Attitude Era. They were just
of course, and she was essential to them too.
Yeah, she was like the cool chick, and because they work so. The reason that Trish and Lita are so parallel is because they're so opposite. Trish is what you would imagine the company would be behind,
bombshell.
Like beautiful, athletic, just blonde. Like that's just what they whoever they are want. Lita is not that. Lita's cool.
She was the cool rocker, punk rock.
The G-string up her, like showing.
She had like the wind pants, the tattoos. Like she was
She was the cool girl that I
She
could imagine
Yes.
what every chick wanted to be. So that I want to be Lita. She's cool. She was still sexy and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a different than Trish. Trish was the model type. The fortunate stuff with Trish coming in is that I don't think they necessarily had a vision for Trish being as great as a wrestler as she was. They just wanted you to, learn the craft. But at that time, she come in as a manager for Test and Albert, and she did that role fine. I'm not saying that she was the best manager ever, because she wasn't. There was much better managers than Trish, but she played that role so well. And then Trish was thrown into the deep end, essentially. So she came in 2000. By the time 01 come around, she was the women's champion at the end of 01. She was not ready for that. If you watch Trish in 01, even into 2002, Trish was learning on the fly. You could tell Trish was learning on the fly. Like, she was not the wrestler that she became to be. She was learning quick, though. Trish had that ability to learn so fast, which was, I think it's just her athletic background. She was a fitness model. She obviously did sports when she was growing up. It was pretty obvious. Where Lita had come in with experience. She was, learning in Mexico, then going into ECW for a very short period of time as Miss Congeniality, and then going into, you're working with the Hardys, you're going to be doing Hurricane Runners, you're going to be doing, well, she mimicked S.A. Rios for the
I was going to say, she was with S.A. Rios first. That was like her first.
And she was cooler than him, no offense.
Oh, yeah, she was the over one of the duo, and it was like, okay, we need to put her somewhere else. She needs to be in a bigger
Did she go from straight from S.A. Rios to the Hardys? I don't really remember. Or was there a brief period of time where she wasn't with anybody? But I feel like she went from S.A. Rios to Team Extreme.
Yeah, I feel like she did too. I feel like she went straight from there. That's how I'm remembering it that way too.
I was young, so. But anyway, and then Trish, on the contrast, went straight from TNA to wrestling. And then, by the time 02 comes around, Trish she's the chick. Like, she is the woman on top of it all. Because remember, Lita, when Trish was kind of getting hot in momentum, Lita broke her neck. Which was probably, I'm not saying it's a good thing that Lita broke her neck, but for Trish's career, a good thing. Because I feel like if Lita was around in that time, she would have been put into that top babyface role.
I agree.
And you can't have, in the women's division at the time, you got to look at it. It's not like now. There was one story, one segment, one match. There wasn't any room for anybody else unless you were involved in a men's storyline romantically or whatever it may be. There was not a chance that you were, unless you were working together, which in the women's division, it was Trish and a heel. And I don't think they were going to turn Lita heel at any point in that time. And they had obviously plans for Trish. So it's probably a good thing for Trish to be able to work with the likes of Molly Holly, works with the likes of Victoria, because she got better because she was working with people that were so much better than her at the time. By the time 03 comes around and Lita comes back, obviously they do their thing together for a little while. I remember Trish and Lita wrestling against Christian and Chris Jericho. It was like Eric Bischoff's Battle of the Sexes. I genuinely remember that. And they had a good match. Obviously
I bet.
They didn't go over Trish, and I think Christian actually cheated to beat Trish or Lita.
To win?
Probably.
Unbelievable.
And then, you're going into 2004 when Trish turns, and that's when I think Trish did her best character work. Maybe not her best in-ring work, or, on par, but her best character work. Trish was such a... when you think of Trish, do you automatically go babyface? Like, that's what you remember? Or do you remember...
No, I think of... When was she involved with... When was she doing the stuff with Vince?
That was like 01, 2000?
That was before... That was right when she first got there, right?
She was doing like the barking stuff. You're talking about that, right? And because that was going into... That was WrestleMania 17, so 01, because Linda was all drugged up and whatever.
Yeah.
So that was 01.
Yeah, and Vince was doing that like in front of... Yeah.
What a story. Wow, we just exposed wrestling. What a great... But that moment when Linda McMahon got out of that seat, that crowd went nuts.
Yeah, I was watching from home going like,
let's go, Linda.
Kick him in the nuts. And she kicked him in the nuts. But I was like, come on. No, but see, that's the thing about Trish. Like, for me, the reason why I like Trish so much is because we saw her
We grew
you
with
saw
her.
her first.
Yeah.
Yeah, we grew with her. Yes, that's a good way to put it. Like, because you saw her first when she first got here and she's doing that kind of stuff, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, this is just another,
And she was
good looking girl
wrestling
that,
at the time, but she was not
yeah,
good.
but yes. So it was
Green.
like, okay, here's another, like, and with the times, it was like, here's another really good looking girl that can't wrestle. She's just here because she looks good and she's whatever and blah, blah, blah. And then when you're talking even like a year and a half, 2 years later, when you saw her turn into arguably the greatest women's wrestler of all time, like, she earned that with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like the fact that when we're talking about the heel run that you're talking about, or even the babyface big run, like just her as a whole, like she won a lot. She won a lot of us over, and like she did that not through hard work, because we grew with, like you said, we grew with her and we watched her get really, really good.
Yeah.
And she wasn't really good at the start, So like that's at least the part for Trish for me is like I always leaned more Lita because Lita was the cool one, and she had that punk rocker chick
Yeah.
vibe to me, which
Mm-hmm.
that's what I like,
Mm-hmm.
and she could obviously was a great wrestler.
And you
She
were a
was with the
wrestling
Hardys,
fan, so
which
you were like, I want women.
yeah,
It's funny how this is
correct.
weird. You're a wrestling fan and you want women who can wrestle.
Yeah, yeah.
What a
And
concept.
and again, and I know you're a big Divas guy, and I have no ill will or no whatever towards that era, but like if you're going to be on my TV screen and you're going to be in a wrestling match, male,
I get it.
female, animal, I don't care. I want you to know how to wrestle.
Yeah,
You don't have to be the best. Not everybody
I get it.
needs to be the best wrestler alive, but I want you to know
That's
how to
probably,
wrestle.
I could imagine, I'm going to speak for you in this sense, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. In the Divas era, you were probably a fan of Beth and Michelle McCool and women
Correct.
like
And
that
Natalia.
because they could
And
wrestle.
like correct.
Or
If
wrestle.
you're going to be on my screen for 5, 10, 50, whatever you're getting, I want your match to be good. Not like I want it to entertain, like I want it
But
to be
that being
good.
said, I could imagine that you would be okay with Beth Phoenix wrestling Candice Michelle because you know that
Oh, of
Beth is
course.
going to get
Beth's carrying it.
is
She's
going
going
to
to make
get to
sure
hear. But
everything goes.
Mickey and
Yeah.
Melina, you were a fan of those people in as
Oh,
opposed
yeah.
to like the Kellys, and no offense to any of these women, but they weren't in that time. That wasn't Kelly's role was not to go out and be a 5-star wrestler. She was told,
No.
you look at Kelly, and she's they wanted what they had with Trish with Kelly, obviously.
Correct.
And did it get to that height? Whatever, no. But Kelly was, we're going to smack you on a poster, and 18-year-old dudes are going to look at you and go, I'm going to watch Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing about Trish was when she first showed up, it was like that.
oh, 100%.
And then by the peak and the end and just everything, it was still like that from a aesthetic view, but it was also like, yeah, she's arguably one of the best wrestlers in the company. So,
it's something really that
you
just
know,
popped into my head. I've obviously watched my fair share of Trish Stratus interviews. And obviously I watch oral sessions with Renee Paquette, and Trish was on there months ago. And she said something that was really fascinating to me, and it just sprung into my mind. In 2002, or 2002, 2003, she said, when I started to actually learn how to wrestle properly and started to get better, she goes, there was a reason I wore pants instead of shorts in the ring. Because she goes, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, like, listen, in that time, you were getting a lot of interesting chants at you, puppies and, all of that
yeah,
kind of stuff. She said, hey, if you want to look at me for my puppies, that's fine, but you're going to stay for my wrestling. She said, I don't care how I gravitate people in. She goes, I understand the role that women were in that time.
yeah,
She goes, it was the 18 to 34 male demographic on Spike TV. I know what I was getting myself into when I signed on the dotted line. But she said, hey,
yeah,
if I'm going to get you here with that, you're going to stay for my wrestling. She goes, the reason I wore pants and not shorts is because I didn't want everything to be about my body. I wanted it to be about
yeah.
my work in the ring. And hey, when Lita was hurt, like I said, when Lita had broken her neck, ironically not in the ring, which is so unlucky, by the way, for Lita to
I know.
break her neck not in the ring. Not that you want anyone to break their neck, but like what the hell? Anyway, when
Yeah.
Trish was working with Victoria and Trish was working with people like Molly Holly and stuff like that,
Molly Holly. Yeah.
like so many people were better than Trish in the ring at that sense. So like people were able to
Teach her.
yeah,
Like
like
drag, bring her along, you
yeah,
know?
bring her
Kinda.
along. To sum it all up though with Trish, I just think that from where Trish started to 2006 at Unforgiven, where she ended with Lita, of course. I mean, she's going to have a retirement match against Lita, where her original, I guess her retirement from full-time in-ring competition in 2006, of course, it's going to be with Lita. But I just feel like she grew so much more in that time. And the reason why she's just that little bit above Lita for me is because I feel like Lita, aside from the Rated R Superstar stuff, Lita kind of stayed pretty much the same the whole time up until 2005. Like, Trish evolved. And I mean, there's no argument that Trish and Lita were the number 1 and number 2. It was like 1A, 1B.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they were there. And when they worked together, I mean, they were the Rock Austin of the women. They were literally...
Easily.
They were literally...
Would you... Okay.
Go on.
If I were to ask you a question, do you still consider them to be like the greatest women's feud of or would you put any of the newer
greatest women's feud of all time for me is
rivalry, you would say?
It's Mickey and Trish.
Mickey and Trish.
It just has a better story than, say, Lita and Trish, because Lita and Trish was pretty basic in the sense of just like, in 2004 when they actually started feuding, because of all their stuff they did prior with the management, because, when they first come in, it was TNA versus the Hardys for a long time, and you had Trish and Lita kind of going at it, but they were in two different spots in 2000. Like, it was not the same as when they wrestled in 2004. Like, in 2004, when they touched, they had not feuded for the women's title. They never really had worked together here and there, like in triple threat action, but it was never just Trish and Lita. And they were just at 2 points in their career when they got to main event Raw. That wasn't a thing, obviously, in 2004 that they got to do. So they did that. But Mickey and Trish, to me, is the better story just because there's so many layers to that story. We hadn't really seen a story like that ever. I mean, there's been many versions like it since, but that story is better to me. But Trish and Lita is probably more of because they're the two pillars. Like Mickey, I love Mickey James. She's one of the best ever, but she wasn't Trish and Lita in that sense. Like Mickey was just like that little bit underneath, especially in that time, because Mickey didn't have a Trish or a Lita to work with once they left. There wasn't really, they didn't build, they tried to build Melina for a little while, but it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same as Trish and Lita. Mickey didn't have that great heel or great baby to work against. So it just didn't really get to the heights that Trish and Lita did. But Trish and Lita, to me, here's a question for you. When you say Austin Rock, who is the Austin and who is the Rock in Lita and Trish?
I would say Trish is the Austin.
See, I'd probably put it the other way around.
Are you flipping it?
Because Lita's the cooler one. Lita's the one that isn't necessarily...
Is Austin really cooler than The Rock?
See, I think he's more of a badass. And he's more of the
badass, definitely.
And Lita is that. When Trish was the kind of the good-looking, what you would think that a company would be behind, which to me is what Rock was. Because Rock was like the less rough, I guess you could say. Less rough around the edges. And
that's fair.
Trish, Lita to me is like the anti of what a company would want, because she's like cooler and she wears baggy pants. She's not in skimpy outfits and stuff like that. When that to me is like the equivalent of what Austin was. He was anti what a company would want because, just his character and stuff like that. Like there was a sense of edginess with Lita that you didn't necessarily get from Trish. But Trish was a better talker, which some people won't agree, but I think Rock's a better talker than Austin.
Ooh.
I know. Austin quite great promos. And
I'm not saying I disagree.
Rock was a more diverse promo than Stone Cold.
Diverse, diverse is a good word.
And I believe that Trish was a better speaker than Lita. Lita's speaking ability was never her strong suit, ever.
No,
Trish's was,
no.
especially in her heel time, she was cutting great promos. So, to me, I would put Trish in the Rock category and Lita in the Austin, because I think more people went towards Lita. And I do believe that more people went towards Austin than Rock, which is... I know some people are going to get mad.
Well, no, I mean, I was always an Austin guy. So
I was when I was younger. When I got older, I flipped. I was Rock.
Appreciate the Rock.
Oh, Hollywood Rock in 2003. Don't fucking
amazing.
come near me with anyone else.
God.
So good.
Yeah, so good. See, the way that I viewed that question when it's like the Lita Trish thing, like, to me, back then, Austin and Rock were the 1 and 2, but for me, at least for me, there was a sizable gap between Austin and The Rock.
Ooh.
Like, I thought Austin at one point, he was easily the most over guy in the history of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Dude was on MTV, Celebrity Deathmatch, TRL, like he was everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The Rock now, and even the last decade, 15 years, he's the biggest movie star on the planet. So like, I feel like the way we view The Rock now is a lot different than how we view, like, he was always super, you know what I mean? I feel like,
I get it. I get where he's coming from.
Where he is in his stature now, like, changes the gravitas a little bit of who he is. Not to like diehard wrestling, like probably not to as much people that have been watching it forever than like some, but I feel like his stature now elevates him in the wrestling world, even though what he's doing now has nothing to do with wrestling. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get you. I understand where you're coming from. I do.
So when I thought, and I feel like when you say like more people gravitated towards Lita, I do think Lita at her height of babyface-ish was a little more over than Trish. But I feel like when you look back at it, Trish is overwhelmingly considered the best or the best. You know what I mean?
I think Trish is overwhelmingly considered by the company that she's the best.
Okay.
And that I agree.
So you think people are a little more split?
I think,
you think fans are a little
almost people are so rebellious that they say, no, Lita's better than Trish, because the company told us that Trish was better than Lita. So I think people go towards Lita more. I don't. I think Trish is better than Lita, only by a little bit, but I feel like Trish is better. She was more consistently great than Lita, I think.
Yeah.
And she had more layers than Lita, I think. Also, I think Trish had better matches than Lita.
And totality, I would agree.
Trish had better matches than Lita in the sense of Lita's best matches were with Trish. Trish's best matches, I don't believe, were with Lita. That was some of her better matches, but I think Trish's best matches were with Victoria. Trish's best matches were with Mickey. I just think...
Yeah.
And... I don't know if people are going to agree with me. Trish was a better in-ring general to work with women that weren't as good as her. When Lita, while she could do that, maybe she wasn't given as many opportunities as Trish in this sense, but I don't think that Lita was as good at that. I think Lita worked best when she had people on her level or better than her. When Trish, I feel like, almost excelled when people were worse than her.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I haven't gone back recently and watched a lot of the matches, so this is 17 years of memory for me, like just thinking back on it. But I would trust your judgment, and I would probably agree. I feel like, and again, Lita had some big injuries, so she missed a lot of time too.
Name 2 injuries that Trish had.
I can't name one. I don't remember.
She had a shoulder injury.
Okay.
That kind of kept her out for not long. But Lita had a neck and her knee.
And her knee. So she had like 2 major injuries where she was gone for a while both times, as you would expect. And
which is not her fault, but also like when you look in the great
bad circumstances.
We talk about Trish and Lita like they were there for 15 years. Those women were there for 6 years actively. And it's to amazing, do that much and to be in that impactful in 6 years is pretty decent. But even when
Like
you
the
look at
Beatles.
Austin, his height, he was there for like 5 years, something.
5 years. Yeah, it was like
Even
4.5, 5 years.
Rock's height, he was there for 5 or 6
Yeah.
years. Like, it wasn't
Yeah.
these people. We look at wrestling now, and it's like Cena was there for 15 years at the height of his stuff, and Triple H was there for 20 years at the height of his stuff, and Shawn and all of these people. But when you look at the people who were at the highest point of wrestling, they weren't in it for all that long. Like,
No,
of course, they come back and
it's
they're
true.
always involved. Like, how many times have we
Yes.
seen Trish and Lita pop up on Raw, or Austin and Rock? Well, not as much Rock, but Austin. You always see them, but like their height, their peak, their active time in the ring.
Yeah, it was not that long.
Like,
Not
of
that
course,
long.
they had Austin was in WCW and stuff like, but he was nothing in a sense. Like, he was just
Yeah.
whatever. When he was at his height, it was that time. But it's so weird to look at that now. Trish and Lita were literally there for 6 years. I think it's pretty safe to say that no matter how much we go, you're Lita, I'm Trish, we know that they're, to me, like,
Yeah.
Trish is 1, Lita's 2, and to you, Lita's 1, Trish is 2. I think it's pretty, and I'm
Yeah, and it's
not close with the, no offense to a lot of the great women who were, honestly, a lot of those women were better wrestlers than Lita and Trish, but they weren't the stars that Lita and Trish were. But it was not close. It was Lita and Trish, and then it was the rest of it. Yeah,
everyone else,
kind of
sadly,
fell.
yeah.
But even Lita and Trish were better than a lot of the dudes in a sense of like a star appeal. They were upper echelons of like, they were in the,
they were right up
the
there.
top main event kind of scene for me. Like, if you put Trish and Lita in, because listen, Trish and Lita weren't always wrestling for the women's title. Lita was involved with Kane, and then of course with Edge and everything like that. Trish was involved with Christian and Jericho, and they were, when I said about like the Battle of the Sexes stuff that happened in, like, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in the comments, but I believe it was Armageddon 2003, Eric Bischoff's Battle of the Sexes. It was Jericho and Christian versus Trish and Lita. I'm weird with that kind of stuff. I can remember. But they were in that spot. They were the baby faces in that role. Like, they had to be at a level. You're working with Jericho and Christian. Okay, Jericho and Christian maybe weren't the main event, but they were right before the main event. They were the upper mid card. They were there. Like, to work with heels like that, and to have, they had like a 10-minute match. It wasn't just like one and done there. They're out of here. And they got, Trish and Lita, they got their shit in. They got all their spots in. Jericho and Christian are pros, and they probably had no problem with working with women. But also, the company has to have some stock in you to go, hey, you're over enough to have a crowd behind you. You're a babyface. The crowd wants you to win. That says something for Trish and Lita of their in-ring ability, and not only that, in a time where women were not treated greatly, to be in that spot. I mean, the feud was what it was. It was over $1 Canadian of who could sleep with who first, but that was wrestling at the time. And
but it shows the trust that Vince and the people that wrote the show, they were like, they trusted. They're the first ever women to main event Raw together. Like,
what a moment, by the way. There's no, I remember
tremendous.
watching that Raw. It wasn't live because it didn't air live here. But as me, has always been a fan of women, I was like, holy crap. I didn't understand the magnitude of the moment. Like, we still talk about it 17 years later. It's still one of the biggest moments in wrestling history. Like, there's only one time that, well, technically women main evented before, but it's not. Stephanie and Lita is not Trish and Lita, and it was shenanigans.
No.
There was lots of dudes involved. This was just Trish and Lita, and
was
that match still.
like
you watch that match now; it still holds up.
Good.
Like, it's a good time. So that moment is so special. What do you remember watching that Raw?
I do. I remember watching the Raw. I remember Lita. It looked like she broke her neck in the beginning of that when she took that nasty dive.
Oh,
God.
Her whole body just kind of like.
Yeah, like
if you're listening on audio, you won't see this. But if you're
Oof.
watching on it, it's her body. For anyone that hasn't seen it, I'm sure every wrestling fan has seen it, but she kind of like does a suicide dive and something. She
like
just
her feet get clipped or something like that. Something happened.
I don't know what happened, but she landed like chest first, basically, and the rest of her body just kind of.
Oof.
It was just
It did not
bad.
look good.
But
I
she
was
didn't
like,
get hurt.
I was like,
which is crazy.
no, it was amazing. I was like, wow. I was like, I'm surprised her neck didn't break again. Like, it was like nasty looking. But like you, I remember, and they gave it throughout the show. They gave it its due diligence too. They
They hyped
mentioned
it. Yep.
the hyped it. They mentioned it was the first all women's main event. Like they built it to be
The
a
main event.
big deal because it was, and it was
Yeah.
for the title, and
Yep.
it was a big deal, and they treated it with the respect that it deserved, you know. And then, like you said, I remember it being a really good match. I remember wanting Lita to win, and I remember Lita winning, and I remember being like, "Cool,
They
Lita's
did
the
it.
champ, cool, yeah." But like you, when I was watching it at the time, even though I was like, "This is really cool," I didn't. The significance of it wasn't that didn't shine on me till a lot later. Like I
Yeah.
knew it was a big deal. I
Mhm.
was excited about it, but even being, 18, 19 years old, like you look back on it now or when, they talked about it when women were starting to main event again recently with this new crop of like amazing women that we have that we will get to watch every week. When they talked about it, it's such a bigger deal
Mhm.
now when you look
No, it
back on
is.
it,
Yeah, it is.
even though it was a big deal then, it was like,
We just didn't understand.
and
You don't
yeah, I was
know
an 18,
something is
19-year old,
so
like,
historic when you're
you know,
watching it. It's just happening.
correct.
Like Bianca and
Yeah. And
Sasha
then
main
when,
eventing WrestleMania this year. You know it's
awesome.
two black women in the main event of WrestleMania. First
Mm-hmm.
ever one-on-one main event of WrestleMania for women. But even when you're watching it, you're just watching a wrestling match, and then you start to go,
Correct.
"Wait a minute, that's going to be a moment that we look back on in 15 years'
10,
time."
10 years, when they show it in 10 years, it's going to be like, wow, like,
Whoa, that's a
yeah,
big deal. Even the first women's
correct.
main event of WrestleMania, as people like to harp on the match so much, but that was the story going into WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was Becky was the woman. Like Becky reached bigger
I mean,
heights than Trish Lita, no
yeah,
offense, but like it's
Becky
just
was the most popular person
on the
in the
show.
company,
Yeah. So
in the
like it's
whole
just
thing,
but
you know?
Lita and Trish to me there's always going to be women before them, there's always going to be people before them, but they laid them and the other women that were there, but they laid the foundation for stuff like that to happen because we could see elements of what we see on a weekly basis now
Mm-hmm.
in that time. I know they kind of drifted away and they went into more of this, hey, we're going to hire models, and that's our
Well,
criteria at the
yeah,
moment.
but
But
I also think the fact that they did it back then
yeah,
lifts them
higher.
higher. You know what I mean?
Well, we
Like
break
they
down the
are the
women's.
two.
We break down the women's generations so we know where it kind of starts and ends. Like we know there
Yeah.
was the Sable and Sunny time and China. And then we go into the Trish Lita, Victoria, Molly, Jazz time. And then it kind of drifts away and we go into like the Mickey, Melina, Beth era. And then it's like the Kelly, Bellas. We go through these
Steve
eras.
Torres. Yeah.
Yeah, we go through these eras and we break it down and we go, this got to here, this got to here. That Trish Lita time was like a peak. We were seeing wrestling
Yeah.
from women that we weren't necessarily seeing from Sable. And China was wrestling
Mm-hmm.
dudes for a lot of the time. So it was different. We weren't seeing that in that time. And then there was still this element of like sex appeal, but then we went into this wrestling time, and then it was kind of this weird in
Mm-hmm.
between where some of the women could work really well, but then others were just models, and it was like weird blending. And then we went away in like early mid 2010s, like start of that up until like 2012, 2013. I think that was like that period was like the worst point from my
The low
experience.
point.
It's like the low point of when, not because the women couldn't work, it was because the women were just getting like little to no opportunity. I
Yeah,
remember
they were
weeks
getting
of
nothing.
Raw with there was just no women on the show. There was just literally no women, or they were the women with the guest hosts. You know, when they was like
Yeah.
guest hosts and had women with them for some reason. That's what I remember
Yeah.
in that time, and it was just a really low point. And you started to lose workers like Mickey, Melina would go, Gail would come and go again, Beth would leave soon, and then obviously everything happened the way it happened. But
Yeah.
yeah, it just Trish and Lita laid the foundation, and
Mm-hmm.
you can wave that flag of Team Lita. I'll wave the flag of Team Trish.
It's all right. I mean, both flags are good to wave.
True.
So, I mean, I really think you can't go wrong either way. Yeah, I just like the punk rock, just the Team Extreme were awesome, and it was just, yeah, that's. I mean,
And I guess I don't know why. I always gravitated towards Trish. Maybe it was like the beauty element of it, of like she's like a chick that's just drop dead gorgeous that can wrestle so well.
And I think that's the part of it too, is like if you were just looking at Trish, you wouldn't think that she would be going out and having 4 or 5 star matches regularly.
No.
Again, and that's terrible to say, or it's like not.
No,
but it's just like you said. You look at it, you're like, this is a model. This is a blonde bombshell. This is a model here. And then she goes in the ring and she just kicks ass, and you're like,
shit.
Well, okay. Not only does she look like that, she literally had the best match of the show.
Yeah, literally.
So, cool. And she was doing that regularly.
Yeah. It's cool. I love how we can have that conversation if there was 2 that were just doing that. But it's always going to be an argument. So make sure in the comments, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're leaving a podcast review over on Apple Podcasts, tell us who you're on the Twitter post that I put up. Tell us, are you Team Trish or are you Team Lita? Because it's always an interesting conversation of the viewpoints of what people have, because they're not always in this agreement, by the way. Some people are like very one-sided of like, she was better than the other. So, all that kind of stuff. So we'll get all those people in there. This will be fun. But that's going to do us this week for the J&J Power Hour. Our Twitter handles have been on the screen this whole time, or they're in the description if you're listening over on the audio. We got a lot of love for the first episode of this show. I didn't realize we were going to get as many people watching as we did, or listening over on the podcast side of things. So that's cool. Hopefully we can keep the momentum.
That was awesome.
We'll probably just be boring now and no one will listen.
No, come on. No, I think we're going to be okay here. I think we're going to be okay.
I think we will be as well. But every Thursday we're dropping new episodes, so make sure you catch us every Thursday. On every Thursday night, Friday morning for me, between 2 beards, you can go and check out JPJ stuff with Pluggo and the other shows that you're doing over on Love Wrestling. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all happening. Next week is the Legacy of ECW. Remember, there's no Legacy of on Monday. So you won't get a Legacy of on Monday, but you will get a Legacy of on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So it's Saturday morning for you guys where I am. So it's Friday night in the States, or for most of the people internationally. A couple of hours before SmackDown. That's the best way I can describe it. It's 2 hours before SmackDown next week. 3 hours before SmackDown, I believe, because daylight savings. But never mind. It is what it is. 2 hours before SmackDown, because it's 6 p.m. So it'll be, you know what I mean. Everyone knows what I mean. 2 hours before SmackDown, but it's like, because daylight savings, remember, you got to get up an hour later.
Yeah.
For us, anyway. But, so all that kind of good stuff. Make sure you watch that. Make sure you're watching what JPJ is putting out, all the good stuff that he's doing. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, I mean, I think you plugged all my stuff. You got everything going, so I feel good to go.
I got a system going. I think I've got it. Well.
I know. Although this week, I will say one thing. Tomorrow night, we do have a special between 2 beards. So not just the normal Thursday show. Tomorrow night, we're doing a watch along of the famous Disney movie Cool Runnings.
Which would already have been aired by the time this is out anyway. But that's fine.
Yeah. That's true. Oh yeah, I'm an idiot. You can edit that out. I don't know.
I'm gonna leave it in to make it seem like you're more
good.
stupid.
I'm an idiot sometimes, so people should know that about
me.
Go
watch the replay. Go watch the replay on Love
watch
Wrestling's YouTube or on the Twitch or whatever. Go watch that, and then you'll be fine.
What a fool.
I saved it, don't worry. I scooped it back up. I'm the Trish Stratus of this situation. I'll pick up what Lita dropped.
Okay.
All right, that's going to do us. We'll see you next Thursday. Peace out, everyone.